I just bought my childhood house by Plaid Russell. Like the title says, I just repurchased my childhood home from the previous owners, who bought it from my folks while I was in college. My folks had passed away a couple of years ago, basically one after another. I figured as much. But I feel close to them here. Overall, the experience has been awesome. That being said, there's an unavoidable issue, and that is the attic tunnel. My little brother and I were fucking around up there one day and stumbled across this door tucked in a really weird spot, kind of like by the back eave. It's weird because you literally have to crawl to it to get it. There's less than 2 feet of clearance between that and the ceiling. We tried to open it, but it was stuck shut. So we got our parents, and they really couldn't figure it out either. They had never seen it before, or even knew that it was there. It was definitely hollow underneath, but it was stuck so much that we couldn't even open to verify it. From the outside, there's absolutely no sign anything was weird about the house. We even went as far to unearth the blueprints to see if maybe there was a hidden crawl space or something, but nope, nothing. It was a real curiosity for a few days, but other stuff just kind of took precedent and we all kind of forgot about it. Except when we were up there for whatever. I'm sure Dad tried to open it a few times, I just can't exactly remember when or how. Either way, it passed out of memory, and when the house is sold, we never had any questions from the new owners. I graduated college and was lucky enough to almost instantly land a really good job that set me up pretty well. My parents passed away about 6 months ago, and I got a call from a friend who still lived in the area. My old house was up for sale. I had enough to comfortably buy it, not enough to outright buy it, but a good portion. So I put in an offer without even seeing what shape it was in. Maybe that was a stupid move, but I figured I could always hire somebody to put it back in order. Turns out, I was the only bidder, and I got it. I was super excited, and since my job is remote, it wasn't a problem for me to move. I did ask to speak to the previous owner to get some sense of their experience and see what it was like, but the realtor said they had already relocated and didn't really want to be contacted. A little weird, but again, whatever. I figured maybe somebody in their family had died or something and the circumstances just wasn't the best. It sucks for them, but awesome for me. I got to move back into the house I grew up in. Not only that, but I got to decorate it the way I always wanted it to be. Lots of furniture, cushions, forts, kid stuff. Always stocked with junk food, etc. It's been a pretty emotional thing for me, but God, it feels good to have my old house back. I was actually having so much fun, I totally forgot about the weird attic until like a week ago. I was throwing some stuff up there, and it's one of those attics with the pull-down ladder, and it's a large area pretty much spanning the entire length of the house. It's like every horror movie attic you've ever seen. I was up there moving some stuff around, and I noticed that door, and all the memories just came flooding back. I was a little nervous, but after some internal manning up, I thoroughly checked it out, and the thing was sealed with some kind of rubber cement or epoxy. Not well either, but I got some solvent and it got through it pretty quickly. The door doesn't open all the way, it's too close to the ceiling, and the space is almost too small to fit through. I can't tell if the design is just out of stupidity or some kind of deterrent to keep anybody but going in there. Maybe both. Anyway, I'm a big enough dude and I couldn't squeeze into the door provided, so I just pulled it off. After getting a flashlight and lowering it about a foot down, this is what I can tell you as of right now. It's a square tunnel going straight down. It's just wide enough for a person, about 3.5 feet on almost all the sides. One side is slightly shorter for some reason. Not by much, but noticeably enough. Seems intentional, but I really can't figure out why. There appears to be a set of wooden rails running down one side. However, I'd have to actually lower myself to know if it's a ladder, and for some reason, they don't start until about 5 feet down. Basically, you'd have to hang off the edge to get your feet on what I assume must be the top step. Kinda weird, right? My best guess is it's some kind of like air conditioning duct. That would have had to have been installed by the new owners because my house never had anything like that. My other thought was maybe it was like a laundry chute, but again, it's not on the blueprints. My current plan is to check out the basement for any sign of an exit. Failing that, I'll probably just get in there and see where it goes. Maybe not the smartest thing, but what the hell. It's my house, so I can kill myself in it if I want to. It's pretty weird, even I'll admit that. But I don't feel unsafe or anything. No matter what, this is still my safe childhood house. Nothing is going to change that. Alright, so with everybody telling me that going in there was a bad idea, I decided to try to explore the house first to rule out something like a dumbwaiter or an underground railroad situation. I started by going into the attic and dropping a small aquarium marble down into it. My fish have plenty, so don't worry. It banged off the side once, and I can say with mostly certainty that the shaft is paneled with wood, which to me rules out any kind of duct system. I couldn't hear it hit anything at the bottom, though, so I suspect it's probably going into the basement, so maybe some kind of storage space or something. Again, a laundry chute still seems likely. I kinda had a stroke of inspiration and decided to try to contact the realtor about the house to see if maybe he knows anything about it. I'm still waiting on a response, but hopefully he'll get back to me tomorrow or Monday. Either way, it'll be interesting to see what he says. So, I dropped the marble in there and decided to try to follow it down into the basement. Along the way, I tapped the walls, but it's gotta be behind them because they're not hollow at all. Because where they are, there's only 2 rooms that it might be connected to. And it's neither one of those. They don't have the space for accessing it. The walls are definitely solid, and they always have been. That, for me, conclusively ruled out the dumbwaiter theory. What would be the point of having a chute if it's only accessible on 2 floors? And right about then is when I started reading all of the comments and succeeded in scaring the shit out of myself. I act like I'm fine with it, but I really do not want to find a fucking body in this thing. That would suck on so many levels. I know a lot of people are convinced that that's what it is, though, so I'm trying to brace myself for it. Anyway, I was 100% too freaked out to even attempt to go into this thing until I know for a fact what's down there. So I limited the rest of my search to the basement, which is where I noticed that the room also isn't a perfect square. It's short on one side by just a bit. If you stand in the middle and you look around, you can actually tell that there's something a little wonk about the angles and how stuff is. My best guess is that the foundation shifted. But it is interesting to have the two very similar in that way. An old house, probably old carpentry, handmade, all that stuff. So the basement is mostly finished, but it's not aesthetically pleasing, nor is it meant to be. There's an old bathroom down there that doesn't do much except exist. Water doesn't run to it, it's not usable. It's on the opposite wall from the tunnel, so it's not related, I'd assume. The wall where the tunnel is solid, just like on the other floors. The basement is underground, so I can't exactly go busting through the wall to try to see if there's an access point. But after using the flashlight and going over every inch of that wall, I can safely say that there is no access to it. And there never has been. This, to me, means one of two things. The tunnel is either a failed attempt at installing some kind of laundry chute, or it's just some weird quirk of the house. My next step is to get glow sticks and drop those down and see where it goes. After that, maybe I'll get a broom or something and see if there's a ladder in there. I won't go in until I'm reasonably sure that it's safe. I'll get a friend to come over and spot me, just in case. I did spend some time checking out the tunnel, just laying on my stomach and looking in. Here's what I can say about it. The sides, as far down as I can see, are all wood paneled, which I kind of expected. No wiring on the sides. More importantly, no brackets or mounting plates for any equipment. The air down there is pretty much the same temperature as the house, but it feels pressurized, I guess? I don't know. Maybe if it's like a closeness of the space making the air feel dense, but you can definitely tell the difference. I also listened in there. You can't hear anything. I shine my phone down, but there's no light at all, so can't really say much about the depth. Once the glow sticks get here, we can see where the bottom is. Unrelated, but while I was going through things in the process of checking out the tunnel, I found a really cool hand crank flashlight that was in my parents' stuff. It looks beat up, but it works. That's pretty neat. I found some rope from Christmas trees past, I assume, and I bought one of those old people grabber hook things so I can lower the flashlight in there to see what's going on if the glow sticks don't work for whatever reason. It's pretty insane. Honestly, it's pretty insane having something like this in the house. Now that I'm spending time thinking about it, I can't seem to, get it out of my mind. What is it for? It's like finding a safe behind a painting and it just being full of feathers. It's totally nonsensical. Old houses have quirks, sure, but this seems excessive, I guess? I was thinking about all those old stories you hear of people find mourning jewelry in their walls. Worse. Snooping around online, I couldn't find anything quite like my situation. But it did kind of remind me of something, though. After my brother and I found the door, Dad was very adamant about us not fucking around with it. Which I found kind of odd because how did he know what was inside? He'd warn us that it was really dangerous and that we didn't know where it led. At the time I brushed it off, but now I'm wondering if my dad actually opened it up and knew if it was just a chute to nowhere. If so, why didn't he just tell us that? Maybe it's because he didn't want us to know that it could be opened. Man, I really wish I could ask him. The whole thing, it really makes me miss them. Q, today. Right off the bat, there's something fucking weird going on with this tunnel. It's weird to begin with, but I could really use some advice on what to do next. I am 100% out of my league. I got the glow sticks. I also found some Christmas tree lights. Some of the ones that were still broken, but it still worked. I didn't know what all I would need, so I brought up a whole bunch of stuff. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I even had my fucking handgun in case rabid bats or something flew out. Stupid, but I'm so freaked out about dead bodies and rats and shit. I just had to do it. Thanks for that. The other stuff was just things that I figured I'd need. First aid kit, some marbles, a used book to brace the door open. I tried to be pretty systematic with my tests. First was the marble. I did one and I listened really carefully, but I couldn't hear it hit anything. Then I broke a glow stick and dropped it down there, and it fell. And fell. It didn't hit the bottom, it just kept falling until I couldn't see anything. Now, I'm not a fucking genius, but I should have been able to see even if it was in the basement, right? The house is only 2 stories, with an attic as a maybe half story. There's no way it dropped deep enough to lose the glow stick. I dropped the entire fucking pack down there. Nothing. Wherever they're going, it's just not visible from the attic. I broke out the Christmas lights. I got them working and I lowered them in to see what would happen. With the added light, I could see that the walls are paneled with wood the whole way down. At what I would guess would be the basement level, it appears to stop. I don't know what it's made of after that, but I do know it had about 20 feet of light in there before the lowest bulbs blew out. I hauled the string back up and saw that they literally blew out. The bulbs were shattered, and the string was admittedly very cold. It is winter, and I could imagine that the space probably isn't heated. Could be a faulty wire or something, but there's something weird about this chain of events. Which leads me back to something I noticed the first time I ever really examined it. The short side of the tunnel isn't really noticeable at first, but it looks like the more the tunnel goes down, it becomes much more pronounced. But the width stays the same. I think it's curving, but I can't decide if that's intentional or not. Again, there's no markings of any kinds, no nails or brackets on the inside. I did confirm that the ladder, that I can see, goes down as the light would allow me to go. But I think the time for me to go down is fast approaching. But that begs the question, how do I do it without killing myself? Should I use rope? Should I get a harness of some kind? I'll have to do more research. Maybe I'll ask my friend who's a little more outdoorsy than me. I got some private messages asking about my parents, asking if they might have gotten killed or something, by something in there. I want to clarify a couple of things about my parents. They were really great people. Even though we had hard times, things got especially tough when I was little. Maybe I was in like 6th grade. My dad lost his job and things were pretty tight. His relationship with my mom suffered. It seemed like he got very distant and not cold really, just kind of distant. Things got better once he got a job at a construction site, but he and my mom didn't really seem to click the same way anymore. That's not to say they weren't happy, but I'm sure the emotional toll of not providing for us really took a blow to him. I left for college and I didn't hear much about their relationship. I'd be home for the holidays and stuff like that, but everything seemed fine. Then, when Mom got sick, Dad completely turned a corner. He wanted to be by her side constantly. He was always checking up on her, making sure she was okay. Her cancer, unfortunately, was very widespread, and there was very little that the doctors could do for her. Once it was obvious we were looking at palliative care instead of a cure, Dad's health started to take a turn for the worst. He was very closed-mouthed about his very own illness, probably because he didn't want us to worry. The only time he ever even really hinted at it was when he made it clear to us that if something happened to him, he wanted us to move on, not to mourn him. It was really hard. Both of my parents were basically dying and there was jack shit that I could do. My mom passed away about a year after getting diagnosed. In her will, she made it clear she didn't want us to see the body. I'm sure people will think it's some way of preventing us from seeing the real her, but the truth is she wanted us to remember her alive, not as a body. We had her cremated and spread the ashes in her garden. Shortly after, I got a call at school from my brother, letting me know that Dad had passed away as well. Same deal. Cremation, spread the ashes right where we spread Mom's. Maybe it was melodramatic, but I couldn't help but think like, I'm an orphan now. That's why I don't like to talk too much about it. My dad wasn't the best person, but I loved him, and he never did anything to hurt me or my brother. Everything he did, I know he did it out of love for us. The only time he ever got mad at us is when we really fucked up. Like when he warned us not to play around in the tunnel. We ended up ignoring him at first, but he caught us and he was livid. He probably knew that we could have really hurt ourselves. He was really caring like that. He took care of my mom right up until the very end and died right behind her. I remember once, after we knew that the cancer was fatal, he did all the research to find out exactly how much time she had left. I asked him why, and he said he wanted to know down to the minute how long he had to be with her so that he could stay by her side the entire time. At the end, he was pretty close, off by just a couple of weeks, but still. That's how well he knew her. That's why I say that none of us were really surprised when he got sick. I do think I'm gonna go down it, though. The more I think about it, the more I kind of just want to solve it so I can stop thinking about all of this. There's so much emotional stuff tied up in it that I really want to go back and solve it once and for all so I can get back to my normal life. For some reason, it really feels like I'm just spiraling. I'm spiraling downward into these memories, and it's just overwhelming. Maybe I never really grieved my parents. I don't know. I'll probably go down tomorrow night. I'll call a friend, tell them to hang out with me in case I fall in and kill myself or something. Or fall into a pile of corpses. Either way, it'll be good to have somebody there. Alright. I'm going to tell you this in chronological order. So, first off, I heard from the realtor. They contacted the people I bought the house from and acted like they were just curious if they'd ever had any weird or poor experiences in the house. The owner told them that they didn't really feel that the neighborhood suited them. No ghostly experiences or anything like that. I asked the realtor to give me their number, but I haven't heard from him. However, I did a little digging. Here's what I know. The house was built by a family about 150 years ago. Like I said, we're in an old area. So the family that built it lived in it and passed it down until the last few members had died out. I guess nobody had any kids, so the bank took ownership. Found all this through public record. I don't really know the detail on the sale to my parents, but I assume they bought it from the bank. My buddy came over at around 5 after work. I basically gave him the rundown of everything that I know so far. He agreed, for the most part, but I could tell he thought it was some weird prank that I was pulling. I had asked him to bring over some climbing stuff, and even though he didn't know why I wanted him to, he came through. One of the things he brought was a little flashlight. He said the first thing to do was lower something brighter than a glow stick down there. The rope was about 90 feet. We got 2/3 of the way before it started pulling to the left. The tunnel was curving. Like a spiral. That's the best way I can describe it. Reminded me of how magnets on strings act when it's being pulled to another one. The light also flickered. We thought it would go out, but it was tougher than the other lights and this one stayed on. By that point, my buddy was in 100% agreement that this shit was really not normal. That must explain why the glow sticks never really hit a bottom. They got sucked in and were beyond the curve. We lowered the light in as far as we could, but we lost sight of it. By our estimate, the curve really becomes noticeable about 75 feet down. I was all for going right down there, but my buddy, who's way smarter than me, insisted that we should do a few more checks. He sort of rigged a system where we tied to one of the bigger beams and attached a harness to it. He was very insistent on it being just a piece of shit thing that would never be totally safe. But I got to admit, my adrenaline was going, and I needed to know what was in there. He got the thing all rigged up, but when I asked for the harness, he wouldn't give it to me. I said, "Give me the damn thing," but he refused. He kept saying, "No, it's not safe. I'm the one that's trained to do this." All that kind of stuff. And I tried to be respectful about it, but we started arguing pretty badly. He threatened to take the entire setup down and go home. I reluctantly agreed to let him to be the first to go down and check. He put on some kind of respirator thing that I had only ever seen construction workers wear. Got himself all rigged up to the harness. He's a bigger dude, so it was a pretty tight fucking fit for him under the roof. So much so that I thought maybe he wasn't going to fit at all. But he did manage to cram himself down there. and down the ladder. It was totally fine, totally solid. He started down, me holding a real big camping flashlight to give him as much light as possible. Everything was fine till he got about 30 feet down. We had been talking, and suddenly his voice just cut off. It scared the shit out of me. I could see him, but it was like he was behind some kind of wall. No sound at all. Afterward, he said that he couldn't hear me either. And when he came back up, calling me the whole time. But on my end, he was totally silent until a very specific height. When I suddenly could hear him again, we narrowed it down to right where the basement would be, 32 feet, give or take, which means that the tunnel goes well below the basement. He got almost triple that before we had to stop and come back up. His voice was really shaky. He said it's really fucking cold down there. I didn't realize what he meant at the time, so I just asked if he was going to stop. At first, he said no, but then he went back down and it seemed like he got stuck going around the curve. He tried a few different ways, but because of the angle, he couldn't get enough clearance. The tunnel doesn't exactly get more narrow, but my friend was having trouble anyway. And he's a big fucking dude. And for some reason, he couldn't just get the angle right to make the curve. It seems like it took him forever to get back. We regrouped. He said at a specific point, a little over 30 feet down, it was like going into ice water. It was freezing cold, no sound. He couldn't even really hear himself. He said it was super muffled. He said it wasn't like anything he had ever experienced before. But did I really want to go down? Of course. I said yes. He got me all strapped into the harness. I'm small, but it runs in the family. I had no issue going down. The ladder is made out of the same wood of the rest of the house. It's basically just blocks of wood hammered into the side. As you go down, the curve is very noticeable. Much more than when you're just looking at it. At the point where you hit the basement, the paneling gives way to, like, dirt that's shored up with some occasional planks. At around the same point you go through that barrier, it's shocking to the system. It takes your breath away. There's a pressure change. My ears popped very painfully. Since I was going down feet first, I couldn't really see what was below me. I felt the curve more than I saw it. I gave my friend the thumbs up and started the turn. I went down for over 5 more minutes. Guys, I timed it. Now, admittedly, I was going slow, but I couldn't even express how wrong it felt to just keep going down this fucking endless hole. There was a point where I was seriously starting to get scared that I might never find the end of this thing. It was that long. All of a sudden, I went to take another step and my foot landed on something that rolled under me, and it almost sent me to my ass. I kicked it all aside and got my feet under me. Solid ground. Cold through my shoes. I pointed the smaller flashlight at the ground. It was the glow sticks, and they were still glowing. I kicked them farther away. This was basically a closet-sized room. The marbles were down here too. Holy shit. The room is small, like I said, and it opened up at one end, where it appears to continue downward in the same circular way. There was no natural light, and the air was incredibly cold. I only spent a few minutes down there, but I was frozen by the time I left, and that was quickly. I was nervous about being down there too long without my friend knowing what was going on. Needless to say, he was pissed that he couldn't get in, but neither one of us was willing to call it quits just yet. Communication down there was an issue, though since a few failed attempts at calling from the room, we concluded that electronics didn't seem to be working down there. We decided to do things on a time limit instead. Go down for half an hour at most, come right back up when the time was up. If I didn't show, he'd call the cops. He wasn't crazy on it, but then he was dying to know what it was just as much as I was. In total, I spent about 2 hours down in what I just started to think of as some kind of like sub-basement. The walls were this kind of gray rock. They were smooth and no markings or seams. Completely dark. No lights of any kind. I didn't have the balls to turn my light off to verify that, though. The ground was dirt, and there was no sign of prior traffic, except a place that was scuffed right by the edge of the ladder, near where my own marks were. The hallway leading down out of the room is wider than the tunnel coming down. I followed that for a ways, but it seemed like the space was getting wider. I didn't want to risk getting lost. Everything just kind of looks the same down here. The entire time I was going down this hallway farther into the ground, it just kept getting colder and colder. Like the walls were almost painful to touch. My nose hairs were getting frozen together. About then is when I turned back. The second time through, I noticed something that I had missed coming in. It was lying there right out of the line of my sight. To the wall on the right, there was something green. A piece of string from the Christmas lights. It must have fallen off when I lowered it down and it got stuck to my shoe. I don't know how else it would have gotten here. Up top, I was so cold that my buddy had to help me out. I had no use of my hands. It was like I had been in a deep freezer. I got into the shower and I stayed there for like an hour just trying to warm up. My buddy agreed to stay the night just in case I needed help or something. He has tomorrow off, and I agreed to wait until he comes over to try anything else. I'm going to buy some heavy winter gear to take down there with me, as well as some fishing line and chalk to mark my way. I'm going to bring a tape measure and some papers so I can kind of draw out what the place looks like roughly. If there's anything else I should bring, let me know. I don't really know what else to say about it. It's beyond strange. Impossible. I don't know what to think. I had no idea that this was under my house, and I need to know why it's there. Why there's zero record of anyone even knowing about it. I'm gonna look around in the attic and see if maybe there's some stuff up there, anything from the previous owners that they forgot up there. Something. I feel really sick today. For some reason, though, I'm not feeling up to much. I'll do it tomorrow, first thing. Last night I posted the last update. I went to bed with a bad headache and a fever. I've been running it basically ever since. I feel absolutely awful. Everything aches. I got a canker sore too. Didn't stop me from doing things, but it just made it a little more difficult. Don't try to scare me with radiation poisoning, by the way. I have a Geiger counter coming, but until then, the last thing I need is to be freaking out about that. The previous owner got in touch with me. First off, she was very nice. Answered all of my questions. She and her husband grew up in the area. They're about my parents' age, maybe older. And I guess the family that built this place was kind of notorious for being a little bit weird. They stayed at the house basically constantly. Never seemed to see them working outside on the house, and they didn't talk much, except among themselves. Somebody spread a rumor once that the girl, the last kids who lived there, had some comments about being expected to be home all the time, that they were in charge of it, that they weren't allowed to leave for too long in case something had happened. We talked a little bit more, but that's basically the only information I got from her, aside from her apologizing about my mother and all that stuff. Turns out she had met them a few times in the course of the sale. She really liked them. I thanked her and said I was just happy to be back in the house. She said she was sure my dad would be very happy for me, and I said I'm sure he would be too. My dad, he's been on my mind a lot lately. Probably with good reason. He lied to me. While I was super sick, I wasn't able to do much except lie in bed and suffer. But I had a lot of time to think. Maybe you guys will have already put this together, but I guess I'm stupid and it took me longer. Mostly, I thought about the Christmas lights. Remember that piece the last time I went down? As well as I could physically drag myself up to the attic, I found the string that I used and I checked the end of it. It was frayed. It looked like it had broken at some point. But I don't know if it still worked, and frankly it doesn't even matter. But I can say with almost 100% certainty that they matched. I didn't bring the piece up with me, but I bet I will next time. And if it's true, that means that those lights have been down there before. Which means I'm not the first person in there. And the only person I could think of that would have been in there, in my family anyway, is my dad. I mentioned that my dad had gotten pissed the day he caught me and my brother fucking around with the entrance. I can't remember what we were doing exactly, but it involved crawling around in the corners and looking for stuff. Probably change, we thought we might find something, who knows. I found it first. I got my brother to try to help me open it, but it was glued shut. We were in the process of trying to use a ruler to pry it up when Dad caught us. He didn't just scream at us. I remember that now. He actually dragged our asses downstairs and threatened to ban us from up there if we ever did that again. This was after he had lost his job and started acting a little more hostile than he had before. It was a complete overreaction, but we just chalked it up to him being stressed at work. But what if he wasn't? What if he knew that there was something down there and he didn't want us to find it? It makes sense that he would use lights to go explore down there. That's why I found the flashlight so easily. Did something attack him while he was down there? What happened that scared him so bad for him to yell at us like that? What if it's why he lost his job? It sounds ridiculous, but if he was so stressed out about the tunnel that he stopped working, what if he lost his job? What sucks is I have no way to verify any of it. It's not like I could just call him and ask him. Later that night he caught us. I noticed my hands were sticky. At the time I didn't connect the two things, but now I'm almost positive why it was connected. The glue was fresh. The glue around the door. He must have resealed it, and he wouldn't have wanted to have to do it again unless he opened it up himself in the first place. What the fuck is going on? How did he know? How much did he know? I felt well enough this morning to go back down for a little bit. I've been feeling pretty hot, so it actually felt nice down there. The pressure change was hell on my ears, but once I got down inside, it wasn't bad. And yes, I went alone. If there's anything in there that could hurt me, I don't want my friend to be involved. It's not his fault that my house is completely fucked. I didn't go far enough to find the light segment. I was just too tired. But I got to the first room and just kind of sat there, listening. I can't even stress how cold it is down there. The stone or concrete or whatever the place is made of is like sitting on ice. There's also this weird feeling that's a little bit harder to explain. It's like, you know when you're in a tall building and you're just aware that you're very high up? It's sort of like that. There's like all this space under me. God willing, I can go down further soon, but we'll finally maybe be able to see where it leads to. It's so quiet down there that just sitting there made me think of another memory. Like I said before, Dad lost his job and he started to change. He got more angry with us, much more hostile towards Mom, etc. If he knew what was under our house, he probably hated himself for moving us there and endangering us. When Mom got sick, he was totally different. Always hovering around, making sure she was okay. Sometimes it felt a little different than that. Like he knew what was happening to her and he felt guilty? I don't know. One day, when the chemo was getting stronger and she was feeling really bad, I got a call from him at school, which was weird because he wasn't the type to do that. I asked what was up, and he said, "I need to know what your mother is asking for. She keeps talking about Scooter, how she wishes Scooter was around." What is she talking about? That just about made my heart stop. Now you see, Scooter was the nickname she gave me when I was real little, because I didn't really learn to crawl quite right. I just scoot around on my butt everywhere. He knew that. It's when I really started to think that something might have been wrong. Maybe he was getting sick too. How else would he forget something like that? My plan for the next trip down is this. I'll bring the Geiger counter. That's coming today. I'm also bringing a pen and paper so I can kind of sketch out the rooms and a level to see if anything is sloped. I'll bring a thermometer, some food, water. I'm going to figure this out. And I'm not going to sit around like my dad did and pretend that this doesn't exist. Maybe that original family knew it too. Maybe they felt like they had to protect everyone from getting hurt. I guess maybe that's why they're dead. Maybe they got tired of having to sit around in a fucked up house. Maybe the stress killed them. I don't know. I just feel so fucking sick. I feel so sick. The inside of my mouth is starting to peel. I'm really starting to regret buying this house. Like the title says, this is my last update. There's nothing left to say beside what I'm writing here. I've done all that I can. I got an old camping backpack out of my dad's things. I took his crank flashlight and measuring tape, energy bars, water, rope, Christmas lights, stuffed it all in there with a Geiger counter, and planned as if I wasn't coming back. I didn't know. I wrote my buddy a text, but he never responded. Maybe he's mad at me for involving him. I'm glad he's the only one I have to feel guilty about. Imagine if I'd taken up some of the offers for you guys to come and help me. The counter I used is the GQ GMC 300. Since it's so small, I had it looped around my wrist and was checking it periodically. It was totally normal, right until I hit that barrier. I thought it would shut off like everything else did. The display did die in a few paces, but it kept going. There are a few dead spots on the screen, but it kept running. Sometimes it would fuck up though, glitch out a little bit, so maybe my numbers won't be 100% accurate. They really don't need to be though. It was pretty obvious what was happening. As soon as I passed the barrier, the meter jumped to 0.21 millirotkin per minute. Now, I went down there totally ignorant of what the reading meant. Call me stupid, call me whatever. The fact is that I already been down there long enough that nothing I did from here on out mattered. I didn't want to risk getting freaked out too much to continue. The reading stayed like that throughout the tunnel and into the first room. It fluctuated a little bit, but not much to note. I figured, okay, that's definitely not normal, but certainly not enough to worry about. Surely. As I made my way down to the other room, the reading crept up. 0.25, 0.34. By the time I was down in the largest room, it was at 2. I took a break there, gathered myself, pulled out the string of lights and compared it to the scrap that I found. 100% match. You can see where it was torn off from the larger string, and pretty much match up to the individual strands. I pocketed the strand, and I don't really know why. Kept moving. In addition to the counter, I also brought a handheld mercury thermometer. At the start of the slope down out of the second room, the temp was holding steady at about 15 Fahrenheit. Now anything beyond that, I was unexplored. I prepared myself. At a permanent marker, I made a little tick on the wall in case it branched out or I got lost or something. While I was doing that, I noticed a little imperfection in the wall. A little gouge mark. Now, of course, that's not normally anything amazing, but in this case, the walls were perfectly smooth. No cracks, nothing. So whatever did that, did it intentionally. My best guess? My dad had the same idea. Like father, like son. From this point, the hallway was on a gradual slope, downward in a spiral. Up until this point, I wasn't sure if this was intentional or not. It is. I'm not going to bother posting all the measurements I took, but suffice to say, I measured every wall in both rooms, the tunnel entrance, and a bunch of other places. I worked it out. I looked up the sequence to verify my suspicions. Without getting too much into it, the measurements are consistent all the way down. The house, the tunnel, everything. They're all in the same sequence. Sorry, I'm so scattered. I'll come back to this in a bit, but please keep it in mind. So the hall sloping down went for a long, long time. Not like, oh, this is kind of a long walk long. Like, I have been walking for hours and my feet are tired long. I didn't bother timing it. Maybe I should have, but I was too preoccupied with the counter and thermometer. For every, I want to say 1/5 of a mile, the temperature dropped and the Geiger counter rose. 10 degrees, 2 degrees, -5 degrees, 21 milliröntgen per hour, 37, 58. Most of you are shitting yourselves, I'm sure. I had the benefit of ignorance. I assumed those numbers worked like temperatures. I'm sure you guys know better. I walked and walked and walked and walked. I had a watch, but down there time felt meaningless. I sort of kept pace of things by my thoughts. I thought about how my dad, about how he changed so suddenly, about how he acted before Mom got sick. You know what it's like to have every memory of your parents called into question? Every motive, every sentence? I kept trying to remember everything that I could. What did he say about us? How did he say it? Why is he always so forgetful afterward? What happened to him down here? I'll be honest. I had no intention of ever leaving. I figured I'd go down and just never come back. I left a letter taped to my front door in case I vanished. My buddy didn't answer, but I left him a detailed message about where I was. I told him under no circumstances should he send anyone after me. Just seal the entrance and tell the cops that I died in some accident. Whatever it took to keep them out. This place is bad. It doesn't feel evil, but it definitely ain't cozy either. I reached the bottom room after a long, long time. Maybe double the size of the last one. The hall was widening out too. This place was bigger the farther I went down. By now it was about -32 degrees Fahrenheit. The walls were coated with some thin frost. A mist hung in the air. Don't ask me how I was breathing down here. Maybe oxygen seeped through after so many years of this place being around. I took a break to eat a quick snack. The counter was holding between 85 and 100. Starting to feel sick again. Like the last one, this room was bare, stark. The room was so cold that it seeped through the 3 layers and it chilled me to the bone. My parka wasn't even helping that much at this point. I'd looked up the symptoms of frostbite, and my nose and cheeks were starting to show the early stages of it. I had brought one of those biking balaclavas and I decided to put it on. You know how if you sit in a really quiet room, you can kind of hear your heartbeat? It was like that, almost like the whole area was soundproofed, muffled. I could hear my blood in my ears. There's some studio somewhere that's supposedly the quietest place on Earth. So quiet that if you sit in it for too long, you'll go crazy. That's how it felt down here. I tried singing while I was resting, but that was worse somehow. I don't think that place was built to have noise in it. It just sounded wrong. I knew if I stayed put for too long, I would eventually just not be able to get up. Like the climbers who die on Everest because they took a stop and rested. So, I forced myself back up, and I kept going. I can't give an accurate description of the loneliness and the non-life of this place. The passage widened out. It started to get echoey. I lost track of the ceiling, but I kept one hand against the wall to keep my bearings. I found a few of those tick marks, but they don't really seem necessary. It's just one really long hallway. No mazes or anything like that. I don't get the sense that this was built to be a trap. Both numbers kept rising and falling respectively. I don't know what the numbers meant, but I was smart enough to know that the ones on the counter were getting serious. They were rising much faster now. 200, 400, 800. It seemed like every few feet that I went, it just got worse and worse. The process of going, finding a new room, and passing through it repeated I don't know how many times. I'm so stupid. I should have been more careful about recording the distance, but it had this horrible sense of futility. Like nothing I did really mattered. This place, whatever it was built for, it wasn't being used anymore. It felt abandoned, as if it were acutely aware that I was the only one down here. Then, a little farther on, I found a glove. I recognized it as my dad's. It was distinctive because of the fur lining. I remember when he stopped using them, we all asked about it. He loved these gloves, and he never talked about losing one. He just said that he must have lost it somewhere. That was that. Above it, on the wall, scratched into it, it was pretty hard to read, but I think it said 4M. Maybe that was a reference for distance? 4 fucking miles? This thing goes for 4 miles under my house? It makes me angry. Why my house? Why here? Why all of it? Couldn't they have put it somewhere else? Why here? I'll spare you the rest of the walk. It's more of the same. More hallway, more room, more cold. And God, it was cold. I've never experienced anything like it. I walked for days, weeks, years. It feels like I could have gone my entire life. Maybe it's so cold that time freezes down there. I don't know. Anything's possible. The Geiger counter had long passed the hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. And even I knew what that meant. The last room came abruptly. The hall that led into it stopped. There was no other exit. 2 walls were the same length. I measured. 8 by 13 by 34 by 21. I wasn't even surprised. Maybe you're smart enough to have figured it out, but the entire house, the tunnel, the halls, the rooms, all of it. It's all Fibonacci's numbers. I had to do some Googling, but it all checks out. The entire fucking thing was built in a perfect Fibonacci spiral. I looked that up too. It's a sacred shape. It's life, and it's found in nature in all different ways. I can only guess why it's so important that they built it that way here. The last room ceiling was so high I couldn't even see it with the flashlight. It was snowing. Did you know it could snow underground? Fucking maybe it can't. Maybe by then I was so utterly fucked that nothing seemed real. The temperature was minus 89 degrees. The counter was well up over 377,000. I threw up as soon as I entered the room, and I couldn't stop. I felt weak and dizzy. My skin prickled. The snow felt electric. It had no shape. The snowflakes themselves, they were little crystals, but they were all wrong. Not pretty. Not pretty like they should have been. They were mutated. They pointed in all directions. Even the snow knew that it didn't belong down here. I don't even know if the floor was really the floor. It was all snow. For all I know, it just kept going down and down forever. Take it away, maybe I would have fallen forever. In the corner was a hump of snow. It's the only thing in the room that didn't belong. I knew what it was. By then, I knew what it was. I guess somewhere along the walk I put it all together and just didn't want to admit it. Who would want to? I bent and I brushed some of the snow layers away. I had uncovered the slope of one shoulder. The parka was faded, stiff, and frozen solid. I slit the flashlight down and dug the entire thing out. I didn't let myself see it until I was done. I just saw pieces, a familiar boot, hair, hands curled at the chest, the bruised neck like someone had tied a rope around it and yanked it tight. I sat down and I re-cranked the flashlight. I threw up again. I was too weak to get up, so I just sat there looking at him, trying to decide what to do. He had been there for so long. He was frozen solid, curled on one side, perfectly preserved. I could see the familiar mustache, the scraggly hair, the scar on the thumb from when he almost chopped it off working on our trees one summer. It was horrible to find him there, but good to see him. Even in this state, I didn't realize how much I had missed him. He was gone, but I was next to him. To see and to touch him was wonderful in a way. It was a relief to finally know what happened. He had made it so far. That's just the kind of guy my dad was. He made it farther than I ever would have. Even freezing and sick, he would have seen it. He would have seen it to the end. He would have made sure that nothing could have hurt us. I wanted to get him out of there, but I couldn't even budge him. I was just too weak. The inside of my mouth was raw, and I kept spitting up blood. So I just sat there with him and thought about all the good times that we had had while I was growing up. The snow was falling, light but steady. I let it cover his face back up. I stayed as long as I could, but I knew if I waited too long, I would never be able to get back up. I'd end up the same way. I left the flashlight cranked until the spring was too stiff and it couldn't move anymore, so he wouldn't have to be in the dark. I walked out in the pitch black. I had to go slow. I was so weak my legs didn't even want to work. I had lost all sense of balance. I must have been in shock because I remember almost none of the walk back. Absolute darkness. It was impossible to know when I was lucid. I do remember climbing the ladder to go back to the attic. I almost passed out. God knows how I managed to do it, but I did. I took off all my gear and dropped everything down inside. I didn't think it was a good idea to bring it back up to the surface. I have neighbors. I took a long bath. A lot of my skin is blistered like a sunburn, but it felt wonderful. While I was in there, I called and I left my buddy one more message, letting him know that he needed to go to the hospital ASAP, tell them he was exposed to radiation. I don't know if they can help him or not, but he shouldn't have been exposed too much. I'd love to wait to talk to him in person, but I don't think I have the luxury of time anymore. There's an open sore near the bottom of my gum line that I think it's to the bone. Any air on it is excruciating, so talking is a little bit hard. Another call I made when I got out was to the previous owner. She sounded surprised to hear from me. I told her I just had a quick question. She was very nice about answering it. She said my dad came by when they listed the house. He asked about the price, but never called her back. She figured that's why I bought the house, some kind of gift to him. I asked if she was sure. She said of course. She even got his full name from him. He gave her the entire thing, even though I could remember his middle name being somewhat of a hot topic with him due to his family history. He wasn't fond of his father, who also had the same name. She said Dad and I looked a lot alike, that he looked great for his age. I thanked her, and I hung up. It makes sense now. It all makes sense. Hindsight is 20/20, of course. I probably could have figured it out sooner, but I guess I didn't want to believe that it all could have been true. Maybe I didn't have it all exactly right, but I could put the pieces together into a decent picture. I don't know if the family who owned the house brought whatever was down there with them. Maybe they were intending on building a cellar and stumbled onto the system. Maybe they built it to hide their secret. I don't know, but they got tired of taking care of it. That thing that lived at the bottom of the spiral. They got tired of constantly playing keeper. They died out, and the house, well, my parents bought it. I guess we sort of inherited the responsibility, but how could we have known? Dad probably went in there thinking he'd have some great story to tell. He took the lights with him, maybe because he didn't want to turn around once he got there. Maybe he wouldn't have died so quickly if he had left them behind. I don't know. Maybe back when whatever was living in there, the radiation was higher, it sent Dad into delirium. Maybe he never saw it coming. I would like to think that it killed him quickly, that he didn't really suffer. Those bruises, whatever wrapped the lights around his neck, did so hard that he had no chance of getting away. So hard a piece broke, and the thing carried it until realizing it'd be too incriminating to have around. Maybe whatever it was just trying to escape. For years it lived with us, poisoned us all, gave my mom cancer. It waited for her to die so it could slip away. It was smart enough to know that we'd come looking for it if it just up and disappeared. Whatever it is, a shapeshifter, a monster, I don't really care. It's out there, somewhere, wearing my dad's appearance like a second skin. Maybe it's gone far away now, and it knows that the house is back in the family. It doesn't want to be sent back down. It's got what it wants. It's free. I'm leaving a letter for my brother, instructing him to sell the house as soon as it's passed to him. I'm leaving it, everything to him. I'm not going to tell him anything. I'll say I got tired of living and went somewhere quietly to die. I'll say they'll never find my body. I'll sign a letter, make sure they know it's me. I don't want anybody searching too hard. I'm bringing a blanket, my favorite pillow, and some water. I really doubt it's going to take long, but I don't want to die thirsty. I'm also bringing a thing of epoxy to seal up the door behind me. I'm bringing a padlock too, so even if the epoxy is dissolved, they still won't be able to get in. The door is almost invisible anyway, sealed shut. It'll be like it was never there. I checked the house and the radiation levels are a little high, but who knows, maybe they'll go down when I leave. I'm not staying long. I don't want to contaminate anything more than I already have. Somewhere out there in the world right now, my dad is walking around. But it's not my dad. It's something else. Maybe it doesn't know what effect it has on people. Maybe it does. But either way, there's nothing I can do about it. I'll go back down. I'll seal myself inside. I'll go sit with my dad until my body gives out. Like I said, it won't be long. I can feel my body coming apart from the inside. My chest hurts, my lungs are soupy, a few of my teeth have fallen out too. Whatever cancer I have is spreading like fire. Hopefully, I'll die of the cold before that can kill me. Please, please don't look for me. Just tell my story and make sure people know I tried my best not to bring anybody else into this. Brian, I love you. Please forgive me for what I've done. If you ever see this, I really tried my best to be a good brother. Please get yourselves checked out as soon as possible. It's not too late. Mom, I love you. I don't know why any of this happened to us. I wish I could take it all back and never find the door. I wish I could go back and do everything again. I've got all the answers. That's all I could do. I did my best. When I see you, I really hope you won't hate me for what I did to us. Dad, I'll see you soon. I'm coming to meet you, and I'll make sure you're not alone anymore. I love you all. I'm so sorry. Wow, that is a damn good story. Please leave a like, leave a comment, all that stuff. Make sure that your notifications are on for when I do upload. Thank you for watching.